Why does God allow Jephthah's daughter to be sacrificed? Also have Jephthah's daughter's faith. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and his ways are higher than our ways.
And sino po naman po sa atin ang perfect na? Siyempre, hindi pa naman po.
Good morning to everyone. We are here, Sir Ina and I, this case study of Judge 11. Our lines of questions are, how does Jephthah's character develop as both outsider and leader? And how does his vow impact the story? How does God's intervention affect outcomes and themes? Why does God allow Jephthah's daughter to be sacrificed? And how does the resolution contribute to the story's moral? And their practical assumptions implications are, Jephthah, despite his humble origins, rises as a respected leader, challenging noble leadership beliefs, and his vow to God stresses the importance of keeping promises. Jephthah credits God for his victory over the Ammonites, showing faith in divine assistance. The author of the Judges isn't named, but it covers Israel's history led by judges chosen by God. The event of Judges 11, it's actually centers on Jephtah. It's Jephtah is chosen by Gilead's elders to lead against the Ammonites. Before battle, he vows to God, promising the first thing from his house is victorious. Winning, his daughter greets him, leading to his anguished fulfillment of his vow, sacrificing her. Now, this highlights themes of leadership, sacrifice, and the consequences of hasty promises. The key characters are Jephtah, is a round character. The elders of Gilead is a flat character. Jephthah's daughter, a round character. The king of the Ammonites, flat character. And we also include God as a flat character. The setting of Judges 11 is in the region of Gilead, in the land of Tob, and in Mizpah. Of the story in Judges are, first, we have the introduction of Jephtah, and we have the Jephthah's leadership. We have Jephthah's negotiation with the Ammonites, and we have Jephthah's vow. We have victory over the Ammonites, the tragic consequences of Jephthah's view. We also have Jephthah's daughter's fate and the legacy of Jephthah. We did not detail everything because we all already know all the story. And the point of view of the author is the author presents the story objectively without overt commentary, allowing readers to draw their own conclusions. And the point of the view of the readers explore Judges 11 for its moral and spiritual lesson, focusing on themes like the sin, redemption, and God's character. The plot of the story, we begin with orientation. Orientation includes verses 1 to 3, and the rising action are verses 4 to 28. The climax are verses 29 to 33. The falling action are verses 34 to 38, and the resolutions are verses 39 to 40. Overview. Repetition. The story highlights a recurring pattern of Israel's disobedience, oppression, repentance, and deliverance, typical of the book of Judges. It also repeatedly marks the consequences of hasty vows through Jephthah's vow and its fulfillment, omission or narrative gap. The story contains narrative gaps, interpretation. These gaps direct readers' attention to the central events and themes of the narrative. Irony is clear in Jephthah's vow, anticipating animal sacrifice but encountering his daughter instead. This twist underscores the tragic outcome of his vow and the irony of his daughter becoming its unintended victims due to his devotion to God. The familiarization. The story deviates from typical narrative expectations by portraying Jephthah's leadership and the ethical complexities of his vow. Instead of a straightforward hero's journey, it confronts readers with moral ambiguity and challenges traditional notions of righteousness and sacrifice. The points of view. The special points of view, which two of us, Sister Ina and I, have shared together with the points of view because we somehow have different points of view. Now, these are Judges 11, 1 to 3, and also 29 to 33. The phraseological point of view are Judges 11, 23 to 27, 30 to 31, Judges 11, verse 1, and 35 to 36, and the illogical evaluative point of view, Judges 11, 30 to 31, and 39, B to 40.
Point of view, spatial point of view settings, Judges 11, 1 to 3, Gilead and the land of Tob. 29 to 33 is Mizpah. Phraseological point of view, Judges 11, 1, see Jephtah the Gileadite as a mighty warrior. chapter 11, verse 30 to 31. If you give the Ammonites into my hand, whatever comes first to my house, I will sacrifice as a burnt offering. Sa psychological point of view, sa Judges 1 verse 1, yung identity naman ni Jephtah. 7 verse 30, gravity naman vow ni Jephtah. Ideological or evaluative of view, dun sa 11, 6 to 11, belief naman ng mga elders of Gilead sa capability ni Jephtah mag-lead. Sa 11, 30 to 31, commitment ni Jephtah sa Lord, vow niya. 11:39 to 40, custom ng Israel to commemorate the death of Jephthah's daughter.
Following questions: can someone who is empowered by the Spirit of the Lord do things contrary to God's will? How can God's plan be carried out by people who are not self-consciously seeking to do God's will? Is there a difference between God's will and God's plan? Now, in my opinion, because again, we have two different opinions with Sister Ina, the first one is, once we receive Christ by faith, the Spirit of the Lord is in us. Anyone who is empowered by the Spirit of the Lord, hence refuses to be conformed to the world, and instead allows himself to be transformed by the Spirit. As his mind is renewed according to the things of God, therefore he won't be able to do things contrary to God's will. In number 2 question, God has a plan for each one of us, regardless of whether we are a believer or not. And for those not seeking God's will, they may not adhere to God's plan, and so may result in tragedy and destruction. Many are the plans of man, but it is God's purpose that will always prevail. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts, and his ways are higher than our ways. I believe that God's will is the same for everyone, but God has a divine plan for each of our lives. God's will is for mankind to be saved. God's will is for us to proclaim Jesus up to the ends of the earth. God's will is for us to be holy because God is holy. And so his will for us to stay away from wickedness and sin because sin separates us from God. And we all know God's will when we read the Bible. But for each one of us, God has a divine plan in order for us to fulfill the will of God.
Question number 3. Can someone who is empowered by the Spirit of the Lord do contrary to God's will? Yes, because the empowerment of the Spirit of God guides believer towards God's will. Pero meron po tayong free will na ito po yung nagbibigay sa atin ng individual choices. Despite his guidance, human flaws and human desire, because of our fallen nature, can lead to action contrary to God's will. Example po niyan sa Bible, may Samson, si David, si Moses, hindi nakapasok sa promised land. Abraham nagsinungaling, si Jacob, niloko yung kapatid niya. Si Peter, dininay si Jesus. Si Judas, binitray si Jesus. At kahit po ako, may mga nagagawa rin po ako na hindi karapat-dapat sa mata ng Panginoon. And sino po naman po sa atin ang perfect na? Siyempre, hindi pa naman po. So po, my answer is yes. How can God's plan be carried out by people who are not consciously seeking to do God's will? Ang plano po kasi ng Panginoon para naman po ito sa lahat kahit na hindi na nagsisik sa Kanya. Kasi yung concept na ito ay tinatawag nating divine providence. Example nito si Steve Jobs, 'di ba? Kung hindi dahil sa kanya, hindi naman na invento yung Macintosh o yung mga computer, yung mga technology natin ngayon, kahit yung Pixar, yung iba pang niyang company na nagbe-benefit sa atin ngayon. It is the will of God din, yung kanyang love and loss, yung mga setbacks niya, maging yung pagharap niya sa kamatayan, nag-shape to sa individual and unintentionally, it is aligned with God's plan. Story na to, nagpapakita sa atin na yung ordinary experiences and decision, even from dun sa mga not aware sa God's will, can serve as a higher purpose in fulfilling God's plan. Katulad nga sinabi yung 5:45, He causes His Son to rise on the evil and the good, and send rain on the righteous and unrighteous. The difference or distinction between God's will and God's plan. Ang God's will po refer to the moral guidelines God desired to human to follow. Yung God's will naman po covers the purpose or design of all creation. Pero may mga pagkakataon na napagpapalit-palit ito. They are distinct in concept. God's will ay ito ay part ng broader plan ng Panginoon sa mundo at sa ating buhay. Ang example na lang po dito, ang God's will, instruction niya sa atin everyday na mahalin natin siya, mahalin natin ang kapwa natin, gumawa tayo ng buti sa kapwa natin para sa kanyang kaluwalhatian. That's the will of God. Yung God's plan naman po, nandito yung bigger picture, like the ultimate purpose for humanity, redemption through Jesus Christ, and for us to be part of it para ma-save din yung mga hindi pa nasisave.